Hello and welcome to the Pixel Pitch podcast, where we are given a year in gaming and one of us pitches a game from that year for the rest of us to play. I am one of your hosts, Al, and I am joined by my other hosts.
Now we're both afraid to say it.
It's okay, it's Frank. You can say it if
It's
you
Frank.
want.
And Frank.
And I am also John. And
But it's the typical crew: Al, Falana, Kit, and special guest
Frank. Thanks for inviting me back, folks.
anytime, we're very
So
happy to have you, Frank.
Yeah, we have to be inclusive of our senior citizens.
What? Hey? Speaking to my good I was trying to think of a headphone brand, but I'm so out of date I can't think of one.
Your good Beats by Dre.
That's the one.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh, another grandpa moment for you.
Edit this so that it sounds like I'm smart
I will.
and with it.
I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
your back. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Listen, he's the one in charge. We got to make sure.
That's right.
I'll tell you what. The game I have picked for this year of 1980, it is really hitting me how young I am and how different technology is. So the game I picked is Mystery House. It's the very first adventure game to ever have graphics. So it's your bog standard. You go into a house. You are in the house with a murderer. You have to find out who the murderer is. But I'll tell you what, this is the very first game ever made by what would later become Sierra Games, like one of the most influential adventure game companies ever. And it's actually a really interesting story of how it sort of came to be, because it started with the absolute power couple of Roberta and Ken Williams, this just
Nice.
random computer programmer, and his wife. Basically, she was a housewife and she just was hanging out at home playing text-only games, was just messing around with her Apple II, and decided, okay, I want to make one, but I want it to have pictures. So keep in mind, computer mice were not a thing yet. You had joysticks, you had trackballs, and the keyboard, and that was it.
Oh.
This is on an Apple
Ooh.
II. What they had to do is use something called a Versa writer. If you look up a picture of this, it is just a square with a funny little arm on it, and you stick your pencil in the funny little arm to drag it around so that the computer can copy what the movements are.
Jesus.
There were not
so
mice,
cool.
right?
That is so cool, though. I'm going to share a picture with the class.
This game was legendary.
Oh, you know this
It
one?
very much is.
I do know
Ooh.
it. Yeah, it was on my short list that I just thought up a few seconds ago when we were talking about 1980. But
very
yes,
nice, very nice. And so, because Roberta's husband Ken was a computer programmer, Roberta did all of the writing and the art for it, and he did all of the back-end programming. And you know what is even crazier? This game was sold via mail-in from an advertisement on a magazine, and what you received was a 5 1/4-inch floppy disk in a Ziploc bag with photocopied instructions.
That sounds so sketchy. I love
This
that.
sounds like some Dragon magazine level stuff where you would just get the adventures on printout paper. It's. Am I wrong in this, Frank? Correct me if I.
this There was a time where, and this is my favorite part about doing a year like this, 1980. They are throwing whatever it takes against the wall to see what sticks. There's so much money to be had that, and everything was just brand spanking new, that you can try crazy things and it might work. One of the games I was thinking about doing, it wasn't even really a game, but like you got instructions on how to run it by listening into a radio show, an actual radio show with a cassette recorder and recording it.
Oh
So like this
man.
stuff
Oh,
isn't
wow.
like, this is amazing, and it's exactly the fun thing about playing, talking about games from this period. Yeah, Mystery House is bonkers and so innovative. I'm so glad we're gonna get a chance to play it.
You know
I'm
what
really
else
excited
crazy?
because oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm excited because like I've never played like a proper adventure game before, so to kind of basically go through one of the progenitors, like that feels really cool. Like start from the beginning, if it were, as it were.
Oh
Because
yeah,
I-
Roberta Williams is known as the queen of adventure games. Like, she is it.
And I do love me a good adventure game, so I'm glad that one of us picked something that's in this vein. Because I am not familiar with this or with, this early an era of it, but I'm looking forward to getting a little education.
And you know what else is crazy about it? People would call Roberta Williams's house her house phone to get hints on how to solve Mystery House. This woman
That is
had
so
2
cool.
children.
Could you imagine? I mean, in today's, I mean, I guess it does kind of happen. Like doxing is unfortunately a thing, but like, I can't imagine what that would be like for that to just like call up Shigeru Miyamoto and be like, listen, I'm stuck in Breath of the Wild, right? Could you like, tell me how I'm supposed to like launch the rock this way?
He would hang up on you.
Oh man. Like this sounds like, I'm fascinated by this. And like,
No, yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be weird to try and figure out how we're going to get to play it, because obviously we're not all going to be able to get this giant clipboard thing with like what looks like an architect's easel on it.
No, Al. They have computer mice now.
Yeah, they invented them eventually.
It was invented. Eventually.
Yes, I
can
got
use
it.
modern technology.
I got that. But I would just say, it's like obviously we're not going to be playing it as
You don't have to call her
originally
home
intended.
number. There's going to be a walkthrough, so that you could do this.
So actually, I wonder, kind of related to the way that was, because I have old tablets. Al, I'm sure you can have access to a tablet through your partner.
Yep.
I wonder if that could be part of making this an authentic experience, using a tablet, a touch tablet, as your mouse.
I have to imagine there's been a port like that somewhere. We'll find out. We have time. We'll look into it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll come back and report. Like, are we going to try and do this as authentically as possible, and then give up because that sounds really difficult?
Thankfully, I think you can find it for free. So
Okay, all
it
right.
should be easy peasy.
Wow, I'm
At least on that end.
Dang, I'm. This is one of the ones I'm with Frank. I'm like, yes, all right. So glad someone said this.
Yeah.
All right, we'll meet back here and we'll report back all of our feelings on the Mystery House. Apologies, listening audience. This has probably been the longest break we've had from pitch to play we've ever done. But yeah, we'll refund you whatever money that you didn't give us.
Yeah.
But we're all back.
I spent most of that time in the Mystery House, locked against my will.
Really? Because I spent most of my time on the front porch.
Oh, same. All
I will
right.
admit,
So.
I got stuck in the forest for quite a while.
Oh no.
And if you're listening to this, you know we're talking about an adventure game. Oh, these
This
things
is an
are
adventure game with a
nightmare.
capital A adventure. Like,
Mm.
like it really is this kind of like. I've never played a game quite like this before, and full disclosure, I probably won't again. But Unless we do another one, which we might do.
Yeah.
But wow, this was different, guys.
Okay, so how many of us had to use a walkthrough?
I actually embraced something that I embraced because as we've known from previous episodes, I am a big fan of survival horror games. But I famously never played the first Silent Hill or the original Resident Evil until much later in life. And in both of those cases, I would use kind of a cheat sheet. I would have a walkthrough up to just kind of, if I got real stuck, I would glance at it and go, "Oh shoot," and then go from there. So I did that a little bit with this. I used that technique.
I did basically the same thing, except for like at the very, very beginning of the game, just getting onto the porch was an issue. So this is one of those text-based adventure games. If anybody doesn't know, you have to type in a verb and a noun,
Right.
so the computer knows what you're trying to do. So I did, okay, walk forward, go, open door, no, nothing, okay, tell me what to do, walk through.
When you need a walkthrough to get in through the door in the beginning of the
Into
game,
the front door.
that tells you exactly what year of text adventure we're
like
at.
I was able to do the porch. Like I like upstairs. I like that I got, because thankfully the instructions were a little bit helpful with that. Like, as what words you should pick. Here are some things to get so that you know what you're doing. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I got to the door, I hit open door, and then I had to walk through the door, and I couldn't figure out the right combination of words to get through the dang door. I was sitting there for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, just like, what words do you want from me?
Make door, please.
See,
door.
I got to the fire, and that was the point that I was like, how am I not? Because I kept, I kept saying poor pitcher, use pitcher, and that didn't work.
And you only have like one try, and then you die.
Yeah, and I felt like it was saying you die with a little smiley face at me each time. I felt taunted by this game. It didn't, but in my heart, I knew if this were made today, it would have done that.
So for me, like I think we may have brushed upon this in our intro. I have a little bit more experience with text adventures from back in the day, and I went in this like I hit play. This is a game that's kind of legendary, almost to the level of creepypasta, early creepypasta, BBS creepypasta. Like I knew a lot about this game, but I don't think I ever played it because I never had access to an Apple. So I thought I knew what to play, and I went to play right away. And I got actually with some work through the door to get in and see all those people. By the way, initial graphics, terrifying. All those stick figure smiling at you. I didn't even notice the note there at first. Made it into, I don't remember what room I made it into. I think the library right away. And I was wandering around, and I'm like, I got the note in the library. I knew this was going to be a treasure hunt. Because again, I did no research for this. I didn't actually go through the instructions. I didn't even notice that it said type I for instructions.
Oh, so you didn't read the instructions?
I didn't read the instructions. So I kept going in the library for a while, and I thought it was a treasure hunt until I found my first body. And then I'm like, what the hell is
Okay, so you clearly did not type in the command look people.
No.
Because when I did that, it specifically like calls you out on it, like the game gets smarmy. It just says the people were explained at the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
wow.
I got that too.
I didn't get that.
I did.
There in the instructions, they actually like hinted like kill so and so, like that was a command. So I thought maybe you could like mess with the game in like a weird way, and like, oh, if I walk in, maybe I can be the killer and just like kill Sam. It's like, I don't understand what you're asking. Like, oh, okay, so I can't do that. Like,
this is for players who've been spoiled by like modern games that kind of mimic the retro style, because this isn't one of those games where it's like, oh, you don't get it, the game starts playing you after a while. But I thought it was. I thought Falana had tricked us somehow into playing a
Yeah.
modern game that was released, that, air quotes, released in 1980, and then in reality now this is going to be a horror thing. And then I got lost in the syntax, because we should talk about the syntax being really hard. And I restarted it, and then I typed I, and I'm like, oh, this is on its surface a murder mystery. Never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's just Clue. It's Clue. Don't worry about it.
So after getting killed, I think a couple times by the fire, I was like, enough. I needed a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And I went through the walkthrough.
Yeah.
Which is still interesting in a way. Like, one of the things I kept trying to do, and I guess this is just me trying to mess with the game, is like, I had matches, there's a stove. There's gotta be a way I can blow myself up.
I got caught on the stove too. I was like, these have to be for the stove, until I ended up finding the candle, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. There's nothing with the stove.
Nothing with the stove. I thought, like, I just got, oh man, I guess there's nothing for that. You could move the cabinet, which I was like, what? Okay. Like,
yeah,
you had to
You
move
did.
the cabinet. Like,
I would not have assumed that.
and how
though.
are
No,
you even
you had-
supposed to know?
Yeah.
yeah. So I think, like, listening to this podcast and have never played the game, people are already like, what? And this is exactly the type of thing, I think, the water cooler conversations that made people want to go out and buy this game. So maybe like a little history of the game itself and how people played this in 1980. Because I don't get it.
The thing to me that is incredible, and thank you Wikipedia for the conversion rate, I saw that in 1980 this game was $24.95 for
Right.
what, like once I got in the groove and I beat it, I was like, I'm a speed run this now that I know what I'm doing, and you can crack through this, and with loading screens about 10 minutes, if even. That equates to $82 nowadays.
Yeah.
And
That's
keep in
nuts.
mind, this is a game that was made by a housewife and her husband
Mhm.
just futzing around with their computers. They advertised this game in a computer magazine, printed it out on a floppy disk, mailed it to you in a Ziploc bag.
Mhm.
It was so early Silk Road drug deals.
And it was before they started, becoming a bigger business as just a hobby project. They did that 10,000 times.
Yeah.
They sold 10,000 copies of this through mail order.
So the Williams are legends, legendary game designers. And Sierra Online, and I think this probably predated it by like a little bit, but like the company
is the very first Sierra Online game.
Like
this is what started the entire company.
And you know what? Like, I don't know how to explain this to people who have the advantage of the internet, which obviously everyone listening does, because not having ready answers to these mysteries made this game almost impossible. This was like a riddle that could not be solved. In fact, Falana, I think you mentioned it, at least in pre-production, there was like a phone number you could call, right? To get more information?
Yeah, on the instruction sheet in the Ziploc bag with the floppy disk is just Roberta Williams' phone number. You can just call her house to ask questions about the game. It's a woman with children.
This is it's such a period, such an amazing period where we were just throwing things against the wall to see what would work and building it. They're building the road while they're
could you
driving
imagine
on it.
today if like Hideo Kojima like left his phone number in Death Stranding and was like, hey, if you're running any problems, just give me a call.
Yeah.
I can't even really think of what would the equivalent for today be, partially because we're not like really inventing whole new genres of media consumption today. Maybe not. I don't know. But like it's weird. It's absolutely like, how would you figure this out? And so here's my brief story. In the 90s, I think, maybe 90s, probably the 90s, my father bought me a Wang computer. Let's let that sink in. A Wang computer. Do you remember the brand Wang?
No.
I have no idea what this is.
This is like, it was an office PC, I guess. maybe an IBM clone, whatever. Could not tell you the specs. There was no graphic card, nothing. It was a really crappy computer. I think he spent $75 on it. So like, and this was at a time when computers would easily retail around like $3, $4, $5,000, right? Just a regular, a somewhat decent. My first real computer was a Gateway 2000. I had an Intel Pentium chip, and it was about, I think, $3 or $4 grand, and that was ridiculous, right? So, but the one I technically got beforehand, the non-real computer, was basically a word processor. It was a weighing computer. I could do nothing on it. My dad had no idea what it was. He just kind of knew I wanted a computer. Could play do nothing at all with it, except it had preloaded on it, I believe, Zork. I believe it was either Zork or Colossal Cave. And that's a text adventure. And in the box of a bunch of office equipment and office software, all on floppy disks, 5.5 inch discs, there was a handwritten map of whatever adventure game this was. Somebody in their office was playing this game and trying to decode it like it was the Da Vinci Code or something, probably a little bit more highbrow. He was drawing, or I should say, they were drawing the map out, putting down little handwritten notes, and I was using that paper map because I wasn't on the internet. I didn't have a computer, and this thing definitely didn't have a modem, and using it to try to figure out. It was like I was looking for a body within a cave. Like I was looking through someone's last, like their last known photos, and I was a detective following whoever owned this Wang computer before me and trying to find out where they ended up.
Oh, you got gifted a treasure map, dude.
Yes,
incredible.
And it's like, and that must be how people played this game. Like you had to push things, move around, die endlessly, trying to figure it out, calling Roberta at home. Maybe going on message boards or some early version of that and trying to piece things together. But like, it must have been surreal to play.
Because I think that was advice given to you in the instructions was if you get lost, contact your local like Apple message board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was after it was released into public domain. They basically said, "Don't call us anymore." Now there's an early internet. Go on that and try to figure it out yourselves. Wow. Yeah, so it's surreal. The gameplay is awful, but I think it almost maybe was better when you couldn't get immediate gratification. Right? You couldn't solve that mystery.
Yeah, it
by
even
looking
says in the beginning,
Yeah.
like, get ready to play something, a game where, like, even moving in one direction or other might take you hours to days to figure out. And like that was just how the game was played, and it kind of preps you for that. Like that was how the journey was figuring out how to play it, if that makes any sense. That was the game.
Yeah.
And that's what's so strange and surreal about it.
I will say though, I had a great time just making the computer say funny things. Like, I don't know how to slap something.
Yeah, I tried using that bathroom. I tried using that toilet a lot, and I'm surprised. I apparently will die of lack of ability to use basic bodily functions.
Don't swear though. It'll immediately say you're done. Like if
I didn't even.
If you're ever like frustrated, F this or whatever, it just stops. Like you have to restart. Like
wait, does the game turn
it
off?
stops on whatever screen
if you
you're
swear?
on, and it just is like, all right, if that's how it's gonna be, then we're done. Like I'm like, oh okay.
That's
wow.
So weird and so great. That's awesome.
See, and it's little things like that I think, especially in a metagame kind of world, that things like that, I'm like, more people that want to make faux creepypasta games, that want to make games that kind of play with your mind. This wasn't even trying to play with your mind. This was just clever. And it got me. It got me in things like that. Look to this, kids. Take inspiration.
And it has a very rudimentary kind of style to it. Like you walk in there and there's, like we were talking about before, when you walk in that room and there's like the number of stick figures, and it's very creepy, but like as you go along and you find like stick figures
Yeah.
essentially dead throughout the house with like
Yeah.
bumps on their head or
Every time it just says, there is a dead body here.
yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. And all of the people look like the way South Park depicts Canadians. So sad little people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great because like it's one of those things, and I think Al Kent and I talked about this maybe in another podcast about surreal horror long ago,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? There's a thing where your mind fills in the blanks and makes something creepier than it actually is intended.
Yeah.
So if you listen to something like the Williams talk about why they designed things the way they did, or why it looked there was a limit to the graphics. You couldn't draw a person, so they were stick figures. But the fact that, or the notes looked like a crazy person wrote them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure that was intentional. I think it was maybe partially intentional,
I
but a
think-
lot of it was like, okay, this is how we draw lines. That's what it's going to look like.
Because from what I understand, and I may have misunderstood this from just a little bit of research I've done on the thing that they used to draw, the rudimentary tablet, you essentially did a line and then had to hit a button so it recorded it, and then you did another line. So that's going to make it look way more cracked out than you probably intended to be.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is correct, but I think the original tablet was for like architectural drafting. So it was mostly made for just, straight line, that sort of thing. And that's just, she managed to draw little people with it.
Yeah, and the house
Yeah.
looked
Good on her.
pretty good, which makes the things that don't look good even more creepy, because like you could do things right, the architecture stuff, but then when you try to write a note, it's like trying to write a ransom note on an Etch-a-Sketch. Don't ask me how I know that.
No, it's very Etch-a-Sketch. Like
Yeah.
those trees as well. Those trees are terrifying when grouped
Oh,
together,
yeah.
like they were
Yeah.
in the one panel of forest.
And there's no change, and you have no idea. I would have never gotten out of that forest. I would have never gotten out of that forest if it weren't for a walkthrough. So I wonder how many people in the 80s died in that forest just because they went too far. And
Yeah.
Yeah, they just got lost in the woods.
we've got another 4 seasons of Stranger Things if the Duffer Brothers want to listen to this podcast. All about this game.
Yeah. Go here. Go to this.
Yeah.
And I will say, some of the details that they do include can make it even creepier, where, like, I think it was the chef, Bill, they specified that
Yeah.
he got strangled with pantyhose.
Yeah.
That was
I'm
so
like,
weird.
whoa, that got dark.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the first body you find, he just got bludgeoned, right? And he
He's-
just has like a little drawn bump on his head with little lines sticking out of it. Like, oh no, he's got a big owie.
Yeah, typical murder, in a creepy house.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
if
it's-
you curse.
Something about that chef, it looks super cartoony, but when you hear, like, I have to imagine like that was kind of like an evidence hint, like he was strangled with pantyhose. The killer is a woman. And it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have initially thought that. Now I just like they killed him up a time of convenience, like whatever the heck's nearby, or it's just creepy imagery. But I guess maybe in their mind when they were writing it, that was just like they'll think like
That's
pantyhose is a
evidence, yeah.
woman's thing.
And then you get by the time you get towards the end with a plumber in the basement and there's a flower in his hand. Did you
Yeah.
notice that? And it's a daisy.
And
Yeah,
her name
yeah.
is Daisy.
Yeah.
Her name is Daisy.
And that is, I think, a pretty interesting clue, although it doesn't really help you solve anything. Just
No.
tells
she
you the name of
really-
the person. It's not like you can do anything about it. But then other things is like, just move the cabinet. Trust me, there's a secret door somewhere that you could get to eventually. Or like,
Yeah.
or even as something as simple as the fire. You just, how do you not burn to death? There's no clues about that. You just have to be like, I got to pick the right way to not burn to death here.
Yeah, like
I can remember to
I
pick
kept
up
on
fact-
having-
the fact-
refrigerator.
Yeah.
the fact that poor pitcher did not work, like pour the pitcher out after you filled it, did not work, upset me so much. Like I'm like, but it's close, it counts, the water would be on the fire.
That really got me too. And especially because like it took it as like if it didn't understand what you were saying, maybe don't count it as a move like I'm sitting there, and you
Right.
just try to visualize what your person is doing. Standing there, there's a fire burning around you. You're carrying a pitcher of water, and you're like, "Oh, what do I do with this? What do I
As you're
do?"
You're just
lighting a
like putting
fire,
the
yeah.
pitcher up and down slowly, like put pitcher.
Yeah, just placing the pitcher right side up by the fire as the water boils.
Yeah.
You're like, no, that's not going to help.
Oh god, I kept on having to restart the game because like all of the lights kept going out, and I'm like, oh no, what am I even supposed to do? I can't see anything. I'm gonna start over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, it's the matches, and like, which I couldn't even tell were matches in the cabinet to start with. I was like, take it, like I'm like take, and like I couldn't read what it was, so I kept like just take whatever it is. And
Yeah.
I had to figure, oh, it's matches. Okay, so take matches. Got it.
Yeah, I didn't figure out that the candles were candles. I tried
Yeah.
putting like, oh look, table. What's on there? Tell me what that's supposed to be, Roberta.
The amount of time the game just goes, nothing interesting. Like, but there's something on it. Give me a hint.
Yeah,
Tell
what
me
is
the
it?
item names. Because
Yeah,
in some
that-
areas, it would tell you what it was if you said the right thing. But in other areas, absolutely not.
and the more important it was, it wouldn't tell you. So yeah, this is early enough in text adventure where like they have not figured out how to make a comfortable syntax so that you're playing it and enjoying it. I did not find this enjoyable. Like I like it cerebral. I like the moment in time this was, but it wasn't fun because like I don't want to not be able to solve this mystery because I didn't use the syntax that you wanted me to use.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like it would be fun.
I would say it's archivally interesting, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah. Like, I think it's an important part of gaming history, especially depending on what genres you enjoy and things that have benefited from this game existing. But
Right.
boy, this is not a game for everybody.
No.
So if you consider, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has like a legendary text adventure game.
Oh, that one is one where it very much does. It is legendarily difficult, and it straight up makes fun of you. It is beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, I heard
and
that.
It's all intentional. It's all like playing with the weird language issues that text adventures have, and making fun of it because that's a big part of the book as well. It's a sci-fi comedy that kind of enjoys language and playing with it. So that game came out in 1984, 4 years after this game. And this game kind of came out because there were so few graphic adventures that the Williams really enjoyed that they decided to make their own. So think about how much, how impactful this genre of game had to have been, so that by 1980 it was the first graphic one, or one of the early graphic adventure games, and then 4 years later there's a ton of other text games. Some of them have graphics, and one of them intentionally makes fun of the syntax issues that the games all seem to have. That's an amazing amount of development for 4 years in gaming.
Yeah. But what's I find also interesting is that this sort of obtuse logic really sort of followed Sierra its entire life. Like, there's a reason why the term Sierra logic was coined, because sometimes you need to use a banana cream pie to take out a Yeti.
Right.
Like,
I'll tell you what. Have you guys ever played the point and click escape the room flash games as a kid?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
It's very much that kind of logic too, where it's just okay, you just poke around, just try everything. Good luck.
It's definitely, if it makes sense retroactively, sort of, if it's somewhat amusing retroactively, then it's fine. It's fair game, which isn't like what I would consider a satisfying riddle, right? Or a puzzle. Yeah. I'd find that annoying. But yeah, you just press the button until something happens and then you find it. But I don't know, the people who made them do this 10,000 times, copy these floppies, obviously enjoy the game, and who paid roughly almost $90 or so, 80 something dollars in 1980s money to get this game.
Yeah. to
Crazy.
get their own Ziploc bag floppy disk adventure game.
Yes.
There was definitely peyote in that bag.
That's the part they can't tell you about these days.
Yeah, the statute of limitations hasn't until peyote becomes legal across this country. You know.
This really had to have been like, because you play this and there isn't a mystery, quote unquote, as to who the killer is, because like you don't find evidence or whatever. You just suddenly, like, enough people die.
But wait, you do.
You find evidence, you just can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can't say. Like early on, if you guess Daisy, it's not like it changes anything.
Yeah.
Right.
But-
So you're just like, oh, okay.
It's
I
just
think
for your
Daisy.
own satisfaction to
Right.
figure it out.
But it had to have been way more compelling if you just get to the one body, you know, the list of characters, and like even having nothing to go on, I'm sure people were sitting there being like, my money's on so and so, or no, it's going to be Sam. 110%. I bet it's going to be Sam. Even though Sam is one of the first bodies you come across. But...
Yeah, somebody's got some truther out there, some Sam truther. No, yeah, early ham radio operators, which I assume is what would eventually evolve into podcasters. They would go on their basements and turn on their ham radios and talk about it well into the night.
Yeah, but it was a different time, and I'm going to be honest in saying, I don't know if this worked exactly as a window into that time, because of the information being so readily available that I wanted it, and sensibilities just being so different at this time, at our current time, that I don't know if I got myself in the mindset of a person back in 1980 coming across this video game and willing to spend hours figuring out how to go forward. Because I lost it after 25. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not sitting. There are tools for this. I don't have to. Kogar doesn't have to make food with rocks. I can go and order from McDonald's.
Yeah, you have to be a special kind of person to be like force yourself to and sometimes that's not even something you can control, because like also you'd have to be hungry for adventure games and curious about what a graphic adventure game would look like. And that you can't unlive your life to do this. We at Non-Pro are trying to build a drug that will allow you to do that, just so we can have better shows and podcasts from people. Give them a special severance drug that will make them not remember any of their gaming history, and then force them to podcast.
We will perhaps send it to you personally in Ziploc bags for a cool fee of $82. We'll harness it in a physical form.
Yes.
And at the very end of the game, you'll get called a guru wizard.
That was the best part. To be fair, that really made it worth it for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually I recommend this game for everyone. if you can make it to the end,
really kind of like if you're feeling frustrated with try and get to answers as best you can. Find a walkthrough for like just when commands become too obscure, and it's 10 minutes of your life. Like it's you've wasted far more of your time doing less important things.
It feels pointed,
yeah,
and angry, Al. But okay. I think the way you would play this game to enjoy it and kind of relive it, but not be an idiot and ruin your day or your week or whatever, is play it. Give yourself like a minute, 2 minutes, whatever you find is reasonable, maybe 5 minutes at max per frustrating decision. And then if you can't get out of it, then go to, especially if it's like a syntax thing or like I can't figure out how to do it. But if you just find yourself mysteriously dying over and over and over again after playing it for a few hours, just check out a walkthrough. It's I don't know.
And you can just have the walkthrough sit next to you and just glance over and see, because the walkthrough I found specifically, it had in all caps the phrases they suggested, and I would just glance over and just kind of like skim just the words and be like, ooh, that looks like that would fill in this blank. Mm-hmm. And then I would use that and then kind of try to go to the next chunk without needing to look. And I feel like that helped me still feel like I was engaging in the game, but not enough that I was getting frustrated.
Right.
So I'm curious, what takeaway on this? Like, do we feel like we all kind of said like it's worth an experience, but like I will be the first one to say I didn't enjoy this. This was actually one of the first times I could say we walked into a game. I'm glad I've played it, but unlike with like Tony Hawk, where I walked away like this wasn't for me, but I still see where the fun was, and this was hey, Mr. Hawk, this was very much like, oh man, I never want to go near something like this again.
Wow.
This was miserable.
I think I would say I think I'm in the same kind of boat. I did not mind wasting my time on this, and I'm grateful because it's kind of helped me realize a new piece in what ended up being inspiration for like the adventure horror genre,
Yeah.
the survival horror genre. Like I feel like I can see how this inspired a couple of other games that eventually worked its way up into the bigger genre, and I think this has got me interested in looking at more of these text-based adventures. But I probably won't play this again myself.
Right.
I don't know. I had a good time typing the phrase "go whole" several
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't undervalue that.
So there's a couple of things like go door, go hole. It just you feel you get a good chuckle these days laughing at that.
Yeah.
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 I think I'm with Falana. I do enjoy the experience of goofing around with a game like this. But a big part of that, and possibly why maybe Al is the most on the spectrum of I didn't like this and I hated this, but I'm glad we did it. I think it's because maybe you, Al, tried hardest. Like you were like, I'm going to legitimately try to play this game for the longest. And I kind of knew right off the bat, because I know this syntax problem. I know that after beating my head against the wall for an hour, I'm going to realize it's go door, not open door, or it's not go through door or north or whatever it is. And that's not going to be enjoyable for me. So rather than make me go through all that, I'm just going to look it up and figure it out that way.
Yeah.
And because I didn't do that, I didn't hate it as much. So if you're listening to this podcast and are curious about trying it, although I guess we did spoil who it was, doesn't matter because you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Then you can play it. Just don't make yourself live as if you're in the 80s. You're not gonna get the same level of perverse joy that those 10,000 early adopters did in calling Roberta at 4 a.m. asking for clues.
Because there must have been some joy in just the discovery of how to get it to do the thing.
Yeah.
Like I have to imagine that was part of the appeal.
Right.
And
I did genuinely
will say,
get. Go ahead.
I will say I enjoyed that up until the poor pitcher point, and that frustrated me so much that was my breaking point. So
Yeah, me too.
I
Same
did very
point.
well until I got there, and then that broke me, and I was like, I no longer want the feeling of being a Chad figuring out this syntax. I'm fine cheating with the walkthrough a little bit.
Yeah.
I think there was a real sense of joy there, though, when like you typed something in and it did actually make the picture change on the screen.
Yeah.
Like you open up the chest and the chest is open. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I actually did something.
Now imagine you've never really seen that happen before. Like you've never seen a screen change in a way like that. That must have been much heightened.
Yeah.
For the time. And of course, I've seen so many interviews now, I think, from the Williams that like just playing with their early like love child, that sounds awful. Don't fix it in post. It's fine. Playing with their early love child kind of felt good because these people are dorks. They're complete dorks. Like it's great. You just look up. I think there's a documentary on Netflix about early video games that has a decent amount of interviews with them, and it's a lot of fun.
All right, guys. Well, there's a place to go and play this for free if you want to check it out. Where is that, Falana?
It will be on the Internet Archive.
Internet Archive. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you all for coming in here and solving this mystery together that really didn't matter.
If you take anything from this, doesn't matter. Pull up the walkthrough, open it up. It's free. Just click through it. Type some
There's
goofy
a
words.
telescope in the pine tree. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
I
that
did,
never paid off, did it? Wait,
No,
I guess
no,
it kind.
it was
Yeah,
it was a
yeah,
trapdoor.
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
No.
right.
I guess one little thing. I mean, potential spoilers for this game from 42 years ago. There was something so delightful about opening that chest and finding that gun. Like that
Mhm.
looked like one of the best drawn things in the game. Something about that, I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
get to shoot something in this game. Best game. That took it from maybe a 6 for me to an easy 9.
Wow. He was so frustrated just
Like
shooting anything was
satisfaction,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just something about shooting something in this particular game. I was like, that's great.
And you only get to do
I-
it once, so
Yeah, you
better
get one
count.
bullet. Yeah. Because that right after I shot Daisy, I was like, and then I ran into the Gravekeeper. I was like, oh my god! Imagine if for some reason I had doubts in my mind, and you found the gun, but then you like backtracked and you found the Gravekeeper, and you're like, well, he's the only live person, and shot him instead. I now have an alternate path I have to look at.
Yeah, and if any of these paths ended in anything other than you dying mysteriously, I think maybe that would be more fun. But yeah, it is what it is, and I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
And you could go play it.
Yeah, go explore the mystery house yourself.
Go have fun. All right. Thank you guys for coming into the show once again. Thank you, Frank, for guesting on our show. And all of you out there in listener land, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
I mean, technically, that's a podcast. So there you go.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.